Hi again, continuing the series, the Gaijin, about my experiences training in Japan in 1973. In episode 3, we had a look at the great Don Draeger and how we got to meet him on several occasions. In this episode, we're going to rewind to where Terry and I had returned from our trip to Okinawa, and we returned to the Yogi Shurenkai, the dojo where I was training. And at the dojo, a new arrival was Bakis Lobsha. And Bakis was from South Africa. He was at the time affiliated with Hugh Thompson, who I had trained with. Terry knew him from South Africa, and I had seen him compete the previous year at the Paris World Championships. And he was a bull of a man, and was obviously a South African international, Springbok competitor. And he was the third of the Gaijin or foreigner black belts that we had at the time I was there, and he was the most senior. And we knocked around quite a lot during that time, and he really was a great guy, and I learnt a lot about South Africa from him. He had a South African newspaper sent over a bit later on, and he showed me a picture of the girl who had just won Miss South Africa, and little did I know within a few months I would meet her. One of the things that Terry and I did was interviews with prominent martial arts instructors. This was for Fighting Arts magazine, which we had launched the previous year. And amongst them was a nunchaku master, Busen Arakawa. And this was arranged by Higawana Sensei, and he helped with the interview, with some translation and so on. Master Arakawa started out his karate training at the Shitoryu dojo, and then after about a year that school had closed down, and he was told by a friend about another dojo in Kawasaki, and it was the Senbukan Goju-ri school of Kanki Azumakawa, quite a prominent, well-known Okinawan. And he joined that in 1949, and he ended up being one of the most senior students, and the two of them did demonstrations together, including being on television. And it was a fascinating interview, because he was regarded as one of the experts in the nunchaku, but he told us that when he first started, he hadn't even seen a nunchaku, and he got the whole thing wrong. So instead of it being 12 or 14-inch wooden staffs connected by 3 inches of cord or chain, he had 3 inches of wood with 14 inches of chain. And it took him a while until somebody pointed out that that's not what it really was supposed to be. And he also wrote several books. It was a very interesting interview, and as I said, we did quite a few interviews while we were there. By the way, there was a chap who was on children's television there, Mr. Hatsumi, and he was on sort of a show where he did tricks and sketches and things like that. And a couple of years later, he became renowned because a couple of his Western students sort of wrote about him and promoted him, and he was kind of the worldwide ninjutsu master. But as I say, I remember him on the TV, more of a sort of Noel Edmonds character. Another thing we did a few times was visit the Mecca of Judo, the Kodokan. Our friend Arthur Tansley, who used to do a lot of photography for the magazine, was a black belt there. He gained his 4th dan, and we'd go along and watch the training in the big main hall. And one day when we went, Arthur got changed. He went on the mat, and there was an old Japanese sensei who had a red and white belt, as I recall. So he was something like an 8th dan, but he's a very frail old chap. And Arthur bowed to him, and the sensei started throwing Arthur all over the dojo. And then afterwards he told us that this was just a way of warming up and getting your falls in, and basically you were jumping for the old chap. And but he told us a story of a young American black belt who arrived and had seen this and thought it was real, that the old guy could really throw you, and bowed to him and proceeded to smash him into the mat, while some of the competitive 5th dans looked on with anticipation of getting a grip at this American and teaching him a lesson. Now, the reason Terry was in Tokyo was for the JKA World Championships. He had come over in advance, and then the rest of the team arrived, and we went to the airport to meet them. And they moved into the Imperial Hotel, and I used to go along there and have meals with them and get some free meals and so on. It was my first taste of a 5-star hotel, and little did I know that I'd be spending a lot of my working life in those hotels. Anyway, after a couple of meetings, it turned out that from the Great Britain contingent, the Scots decided they wanted to enter as a national team themselves, as Scotland, and this left the rest of the Brits short. And so I was invited to join the team, and then I moved into the Imperial Hotel with them. And one day we went along to the JKA headquarters with an Oda sensei, and he was absolutely treated like a god there, and it just made you realize just how special he was. The other Brits beside Terry were Glenn Haslam, who was from somewhere up north, as I recall, but had moved to Liverpool to train at the Red Triangle, and Jim Wilson, who was from London, who later emigrated to Canada and started an association out there. Really great guys, and made me most welcome. The JKA World Championships was held in the huge Nippon Budokan stadium, which I'd visited already a few times, and it was purpose built for the martial arts. So taking the tournament stage there was a bit of a daunting experience. I had to borrow a belt because all my belts said Goju Ryu on it, and that would have looked strange. So I borrowed a belt that just said Karate Do, and we were knocked out in the first round by South Africa, who had a very strong team. my bout was against Ken Whitstock, who was a noted competitor, and we fought to a score draw. He scored on me very, very quickly with a long. He slid in with a long Gaijin, scored half point, and then as he went to do it again, I took his front foot with a sweep and did a Kazamazuki and equalised, and tried it again, but I didn't get a score, and then that was it. So as a team we were out, and that was the extent of my involvement that day. And then afterwards we all went to a big hall for something to eat, and a few beers, and mix and tell stories. It was really, really good. One of the chaps who competed was the fearsome Yano, and he had a terrible reputation, particularly with the foreign students at the JKA. He really was brutal. And some of the stories I heard about him, really, you know, they illustrate a particular type of individual, which is not confined to any one system or style, but he sort of epitomised it down at the JKA. And he announced a kata and did a very, very strong, I think he did Sochin kata, really, really good. But unfortunately, he announced a different kata, so they just disqualified him. One of the highlights was announced as a sparring match between Noida Sensei and Kanazawa Sensei, and they were both former JK champions, and we look forward to this because they were both each in their own particular way amazing competitors and instructors. But in the event, it was more of a demonstration match. It wasn't a real fight, but nonetheless, it was very, very exciting. And I've got to really record my thanks to Anoda Sensei for his hospitality to me during that period. He included me in lots of the events and the dinners and so on, and he died tragically in 2003, and a tremendous loss to the martial arts world. And it's been said of him, he had the fearless attitude of a hero and the loving heart of a child. His contribution to British karate was immense. So that's it for that particular period, and we'll continue with the series in a couple of weeks.